I was a child when my dad broke up with Mom. He told her, "It's over between us because you look old. I can't date a woman with wrinkles on her face. It's embarrassing." After that, Mom was never the same. She became super sensitive about her looks. And when I tried on makeup for the first time, she told me, "Oh, now you try to be prettier than me?" "No, Mom. I was just playing around a bit." "Well, you look like a filthy tramp." "I bet what you really want to do is seduce the boys in your class." "You make me sick." Soon after, things got even worse. She started overeating and got so fat that she hated me for being thin. She told me, "You are too skinny. Here, I made you bacon." "No, thanks, Mom. I'm not hungry." "Huh? Are you afraid to become fat and ugly like your mother?" Of course I didn't want my mom to hate me. I was just a little girl, after all. So I became overweight for her. But that didn't satisfy her either. She told me, "Ugh, now you look like a piggy. I'm ashamed to have you as my daughter." That same day, she started an extreme diet where she ate nothing but sunflower seeds and lemonade for 4 months, losing 120 pounds. And she only did it so she could be prettier than me. She told me, "Look at my figure. Don't I look like a hot teenager?" "Yes, Mom, you are gorgeous." Meanwhile, at school, all my friends abandoned me because they didn't want to be seen with the fat girl. I became a complete loner, and it was all my mom's fault. That's why I wrote in my diary, "Dad was right to leave Mom. She is ugly and hideous. That's why she hasn't found a new boyfriend yet." What I wrote was super mean, but she deserved it. Afterward, it took me 3 years to lose the weight and find my first boyfriend, Ben. But my mom somehow spotted Ben's reflection in one of my Instagram photos. She came and told me, "You are 15 and already sleeping around? You disgust me." "No, Mom, I'm not sleeping around. I have one boyfriend and I'm loyal to him." "Really? Then why do you always dress like a hooker?" That's when she went to my dresser and threw out all the clothes that she didn't like. But when she got to my underwear drawer, she found my diary. When she got to my underwear drawer, she found my diary. I screamed, "Hey, that's mine! Give it to me!" Well, I'm your mother. I can do whatever I want." I never felt more scared in my life. She read it calmly, page by page, until she found that one passage where I had written about her. She turned to me and said, "So you think I'm ugly and can't get a boyfriend?" "No, I wrote that years ago when I was angry. I didn't really mean it." Wow. First, my daughter turns into a street worker, and then she calls me ugly? You will regret this. Badly. I was petrified. And the next day, she pulled me out of high school so she could homeschool me. She told me, "Solve all these math problems before I'm back from work at 6. She wanted to torture me, but of course I just Googled the answers. And once I was done, I made Ben come over. I had some exciting things in mind. But right when I took his shirt off, my mom called. She screamed, "I know he's there, and I'm coming." At first I was terrified, but then I realized that it was too late to change things anyways. So we barricaded the door, and I continued making out with my boyfriend, Ben. It was exciting. When Mom couldn't get in, she started banging against the door, but we just kept kissing. Well, until Mom picked up a sledgehammer and smashed in the door. She said, "This will be the last day of your life." She didn't exaggerate because she bought a 1-meter rope and tied us together. Now I had no choice but to stay at her side all day. She only took the rope off when I had to pee or go to sleep. I even had to accompany her to her office job. She somehow got me an internship there, even though I hated it. And after a year, I finally had enough, so I came up with an escape plan. During lunch at work, I went to my mom's boss table and said, "Hey, I'm Miley. I've heard you are such a great manager." "Oh, I'm not sure about that." "Well, can I come by your office later today? Maybe you can give me some career advice." "Of course, I love to do that." Normally, I don't like older guys, but he was my mom's boss, and that made it exciting. And anyway, there was nothing wrong with it. I was 16, and that's the legal age of consent here in the UK. After talking with him for a few hours, he offered me a job as his personal assistant. I accepted it and suddenly spent most of my day right next to his desk. We flirted non-stop, but when I went for the kiss, he said, "I'm sorry, it's not lawful for an adult in a position of authority to be with someone under the age of 18. What? That sucks. I thought we could have some fun together and maybe even become a couple. "Well, we can date each other, but first you have to quit your job here. And if you want, you can even move into my apartment. I'll pay for all your expenses, even your education if you want to go back to school." I resigned the same day, sat down on his lap to kiss him and said, "My dad left me when I was a small girl, but now I have you. Thanks so much." Today, I'm 20 and my mom is still working for my boyfriend. Meanwhile, I'm studying at university to get my degree. Yay! Life.
Hey, I'm Robert, and I've always been very good-looking. I'm not saying that to brag. It's just that every single girl in my high school wanted to date me. I was young, and of course, I chose the hottest girl. Her name was Rebecca, and all I had to do was say hi to her. She immediately responded, "Oh my God, hey Robert!" And a few hours later, I made out with her. Afterward, we dated for 2 weeks. But I didn't actually like Rebecca. All she did was gossip and trash talk her own friends. At one point, I had enough and broke up with her. I could have found another gorgeous girl, but I liked Elsa the most. She was my chemistry partner, and I simply enjoyed talking and hanging out with her. Was she pretty? Well, most people would have said no, but I really didn't care. All I knew was that I wanted to spend more time with her. That's why I asked her out. I said, "Hey, do you want to go on a date with me this weekend?" She seemed very surprised and said, "You want to date me?" I nodded my head and said, "Of course." Our first date was great. We went on a Ferris wheel and held hands. It sounds stupid, but it felt right. But then the news spread at our school. A lot of people asked me, "Why are you dating Elsa? Do you really think she's pretty?" Of course, I hated those questions because they made it sound like I was somehow out of her league. But I never thought that way. I just knew that Elsa was the right girl for me, and for the first time in my life, I was in love. But then I introduced her to my dad and said, "Dad, this is Elsa. We have been dating for a few months now, and I wanted to introduce her to you." But instead of welcoming Elsa, my dad pointed at her and said, "I don't like you." We were both shocked. But Elsa was a brave girl and asked my dad, "Sir, can I ask why you don't like me?" And my dad responded, "I'm sure you are a nice girl, but my son is a 10, and you are a 4 at best." I saw that Elsa was holding back tears, and I got so angry that I screamed at my dad, "You monster!" Then I took Elsa to my room and tried to comfort her. I said, "My dad's opinion doesn't matter." But then she asked me, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And I responded, "I don't think it matters whether you are pretty or not." So I couldn't handle my answer. She started crying and said, "So it's true what the other kids in our school say. They all think I don't deserve you." She was crying, but I responded, "Look, you are not the prettiest girl in the world. You either accept that or not. But I love you just the way you are, and there is nothing I enjoy more than spending time with you. Isn't that enough?" Finally, Elsa said, "Yes, I can live with that." I thought we had solved this problem. But the next day, my mean dad took my phone and wrote Elsa a message saying, "I'm sorry, you really, really aren't pretty enough for me. That's why I have to break up with you." When I had my phone back, I saw my dad's text and Elsa's reply. It was a single sad smiley. I immediately went over to her place and explained what my stupid dad had done. She said it was fine, but I could see in her eyes how much my dad had hurt her. Now, our next date, it wasn't good either. Whenever a good-looking girl was close to us, Elsa said, "If you want, you can talk to her." I always responded, "I don't want to talk to other girls." But Elsa's insecurities only grew worse, and I missed the careless and fun times we had before. I hoped she would become her old self again. But then my dad took it to the next level. He said to me, "Either you're going to break up with Elsa, or I'm going to throw you out of my house when you..."
I'm Laura, and growing up, I was very poor. My parents had drug problems, and sometimes there wasn't any food in the house because they had spent all their money on drugs. I ended up running away from home at 16 and didn't even graduate high school. Luckily, I found a job as a waitress, and things started to look better. I was making enough money to rent a room in the shared apartment with my friends, and for the first time in my life, I was happy. But then I started dating this cute guy, Dylan. I didn't know it when we met, but he was really wealthy. I began to realize the difference in our incomes when he would only eat at really expensive restaurants. I told him I would rather go somewhere more affordable, but he would always insist, and it wasn't worth arguing with him. When the bill came, it was always awkward because I felt bad for not paying my half, even though Dylan said it wasn't a problem. I liked hanging out with him, but I hated how he sometimes made me feel like I wasn't good enough, Like, if I complained about the cold weather, he would say, "You think this is cold? You should try skiing down a mountain in Austria." And then there was the time I found a really gorgeous dress at a thrift shop. I loved that dress, but Dylan told me it was secondhand trash, and he promised to buy me an expensive designer dress if I ditched it. He wouldn't even ride in my car because, according to him, it was old and embarrassing. For my birthday, he surprised me with the 2-week vacation to the Bahamas, even though we had only been dating a couple months. Of course, I was incredibly grateful, but I just couldn't accept. Because if I had taken 2 weeks off from work to go on vacation, I'm sure my boss would have fired me. Unfortunately, Dylan felt rejected, and he even got a bit angry, calling me a party pooper. Sometimes I invited him over to my place so we could cook together and save money. Those were some of the best times we had, but when it was time to wash the dishes, he never helped. This bothered me because I don't care who has more money, but I do believe both people in a relationship should share the housework. It's only fair. I guess I knew it wasn't going to work out between us, but I really tried because Dylan could be so sweet and he made me laugh. After 4 months of dating, he introduced me to his mom, and she asked me if I knew how to take care of kids. When I told her I didn't like children, she was shocked because every woman was born to be a mother. She thought I would want to give up work and become a housewife, but I like having my independence, even if I'm only a waitress. The worst thing was when we hung out with some of Dylan's friends. He was really different when he was with them. When one of them called me a gold digger, instead of defending me, Dylan laughed. That's when I decided to break up with him. I think in the end our expectations were just too different, and I didn't like how he looked down on people. Don't get me wrong, I loved eating at fine restaurants and wearing fancy dresses, but what I really need is a guy who makes me feel appreciated, loved, and safe. Money can't buy that. I hope you enjoyed listening. Hey, my name is Jolene, and this story is about my evil stepsister, Vanessa. When I was 9 years old, my mom remarried. Her new husband was okay, but his daughter was a 12-year-old witch that tried to make my life hell. One time she came into my room and asked if I wanted to see a magic trick. I said yes, but she told me I had to tie my foot to the bed first so I wouldn't run away. Of course, I was scared, but she told me not to be a baby, so I agreed. Once I was tied up, she brought the vacuum cleaner into my room and said, "Welcome to my magic show. Today, I will make a hamster disappear." I immediately realized what she had planned and screamed, "No, no!" And I desperately tried to break my foot free, but it was hopeless. Next, Vanessa turned the vacuum cleaner on, walked over to my hamster's cage, and plop! She had sucked him up into the vacuum cleaner. I was screaming like crazy. My poor Mr. Blinky. Finally, I managed to untie my foot and I ran to the vacuum cleaner to rescue my hamster. But I couldn't find him. Then Vanessa said, "Ha! I just pranked you. Your stupid hamster is still alive." She pulled him out of her sweatshirt safe and well. That's the kind of person she was. She made my life hell for years.